All right, we're back.
Good morning.
Morning. This is going to be a good one. We're going to set this up to be a three-parter. I've been thinking a lot about like some of the fundamental things that people could do to grow their business, and something that always has been effective for me, and I see it in all my clients' businesses, I see it across the board, is relationship building and building a network. And so I want to talk about that today, kind of break that down, and we'll do it in kind of three parts. But, I think I'm a marketer, and I think that like marketers especially and small businesses, they get caught up in the latest thing that's happening. Facebook, Google ads, they get caught up in all the tech. All that stuff has its place. It's all beneficial. There's stacks of sorts that you have to think about when you're putting together a marketing strategy. But if you're just starting out, or if you've been in business for 20 years, especially if you go talk to people that have been in business for 20 years and you ask them, how did you get your best client? How did you get most of your clients? They're going to say word of mouth. They're going to say, they'll eventually get back to their network, the relationship they built. And I'll even say on a grander scale, there's a lot of tech going on these days, SaaS companies and those kind of things. They get a lot of attention, and they build in relationship building and network effects to what they do. So they're getting referrals as well. If you sign up for something, you might have signed up for something, and you'll get an email that says refer a friend, and you get some kind of kickback.
I get that every day, especially from credit cards.
Yeah, and it works for them. Yeah. It works for them. That's why they do it. Right?
Marriott points. Yeah. Refer a friend, get your 40,000 points.
Because they know, when you break down society, essentially, you end up with these little pods of people that we all have these kind of overlapping small circles. And I think there's the number in past has been about 150 people is kind of are in your circle, any one circle.
Yeah. Some
people's circles are bigger or smaller, but roughly 150 people is who that you could like call or text, and they'd be like, yeah, I know you, and then the circles get smaller and smaller down to the one or two people that you can trust, with your life.
Your inner circle.
Yeah. So I think, network is probably the most important mechanism for growing a business. And it's all based on relationships. So I kind of want to just kind of put that out there just to set the foundation for this discussion, this series. But I really do feel like if anybody's watching this and they ask themselves the question, like, how am I getting my business? Unless their business is based on selling something through a funnel on a Facebook ad and it's a product that is being drop shipped to someone's door, that's probably going to be the only instance where I'd say they're not getting their business off of referral.
Majority. Yeah. It's hard to think of any business that doesn't have a good network, and ultimately the best longevity is the network and word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the holy grail of sales.
Yeah. And so what I want to do is break this down and kind of give our experience about building a network. Your network is, I think a lot of people can get thrown off by, you got to have this big network. It's not necessarily big. You can think about it like in terms of an email list. You could have 10,000 people on an email list and have, 10% or even 1% opening it every day.
It goes the quality of the network as well.
But it's the quality of that list. So you could have 100 people that's more qualified than 10,000 or 1,000. And that's kind of what I want to break down. So if we look at let's start with, I have this sort of graphic that I've created. I show from time to time, and I don't really have the ability to show it now, but it's kind of like an ecosystem, right? So it's all connected, where you have 4 different parties in that ecosystem, major parties. That's you, your brand. Then you have your clients. You have the people that you're actually serving. You have your referral partners or affiliates, people that could refer you, that are strategic partners. This is where we generally think of as our network.
Okay.
And then you have your buyers.
Yeah, I think of there's a business has multiple avenue of networks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's, I think, what's good for people to realize. One of the things I want to come from this is I want people to realize should be a priority. It shouldn't be an afterthought of, let's go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, let's go to the Rotary, let's, get on LinkedIn and check our feed. that's an afterthought. You know, I think network building should be a priority in your marketing strategy.
You have to have intent, you know, because I have seen many people over the years that they get into the idea of like, oh, networking. And all they do is network, but I don't see any results. I'm really results oriented.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to provide someone value and value back. So I have seen, and I've had employees over the years that they just network so much. They provide connections, but yet you never see any results come back to them.
Yes.
Because they're just like professional networkers.
Yeah.
But not
quote unquote networkers. And I think that's where networking gets its bad rap. Just like anything can get a bad rap, because you have these bad actors out there that are quote unquote networking for the company, but they're not doing anything. And so I think that's really a good point to break down. What does it mean to build a network? Well, build a network to me is building relationships.
Yes.
And when you look at building relationships outside of a business context, it's actually caring about someone else for the sake of them. Not necessarily just for what
your best network is they see your value in what you do and your product. You know,
and there's a connection of value there, right? So if you are building a network, it's not going to a meeting or an event and exchanging business cards. That's not networking. That's like this word that has been kind of bastardized. And so it's really more about building relationships. So if you go to an event or you're online in a community or something, it's about learning about the person or people that are there and interacting with them in a human way. So social media is social first. It should be social. So if you go to LinkedIn, you should be there in the same type of mindset that you would be if you're at a reception to a conference or breakout room in a conference where everyone's sort of meeting each other. Well, you're not going to. The bad rap is, here's my business card. Like, basically, are you going to buy something from me? That's sales. That's not.
And rarely
building relationships.
The later I go on, I don't know about you, but I mean, I rarely ever carry a business card.
Oh, I don't have business cards. Yeah. I just tell people to go to my LinkedIn.
Yeah. I've got them once in a while just because I feel like, okay, at this event, they're going to require and somebody asks, okay, here you go. But typically the ones that ask for your business card, 9 times out of the 10 are not necessarily going to be the one
that's right.
good in your network.
Yeah.
They just want to fill you in, put you on drip campaign. You're like, okay.
Yeah. I think business cards, they have their place. It depends on what it is that you're doing and the places you're there's still a lot of old guard that's out there that has them. They want them. They respect them. I would venture to say very few of them actually do anything with them. They just sit in their car or their desk and they get thrown away. But I think it's about being social in a human way. It's about caring about what other people are bringing to the table, what's valuable to them, and adding value, right? So discovering what is valuable so that you can add more value is how you build a relationship with someone, right? Like if you're trying to date someone to marry, or you're trying to just have good friendships, like this is how you do it.
You know, if you've already got a business established and you want to tent on networking, how much time of the day do you believe that the business owner should spend on networking? You know, because if they just spent all their time networking, they're not back.
Well, so first I would say, let's take it off of the word networking. I'm saying build a network of relationships. Okay. So the bad word is networking. Take that out. How much time should they spend building relationships? I think that they don't need to spend all of their days building relationships.
No, I think it has to come natural in your meetings and with intent and follow up and having continual connections later on down the road, because there's not always, you can't do something for that individual right then and there.
But that kind of comes back to this ecosystem effect. Like you have to first know who it is that you need to have a relationship with. It can't just be this spray and pray thing where I go to this big event. I'm using events as an example because it's how most people do it wrong. You go to this event, there's all these people there, and you don't have any direction about who you're going to talk to, what you're going to talk about, and what value you can bring them and the value they can bring you. You're not thinking about all of these things. Yeah. A lot of people don't even know how to articulate the messaging about what they do. So they're just kind of going to an event. They're getting a drink and having some food and chatting with people and exchanging business cards. And occasionally someone slaps them in the face and says, I actually need what you have. Like, that's not what
so
I'm
first
talking
things
about.
first, being able to articulate what you actually do and the value you produce.
So you can add value to those conversations and also know who it is that you need to be in front of. So, for me, if I were to be in a room full of CEOs, that's a good room for me to be in because I can add a lot of value to those people and they're going to get a lot of value from the conversation that we have naturally because the things I like to talk about and the things I'm about, they care about. And it just so happens to be that they're my buyer, right? Yeah. So that's a really good thing. But if you don't know who your buyer is, that's a problem. So let's start there. Uncover more about who your ideal buyer is, your referral partners, like who has sent you referrals.
That's the first kind of network of people that come to mind are your existing, the people that hire you or buy your product. Mm-hmm. That's the existing. How do you get more of that? I mean, that's the face to face. I think that's the first thing that comes to everybody's network or building more network of your existing buyers. But then, to me too, there's a lot of other influential people outside of that network. And, how can somebody differentiate? And, because ultimately there's so much time in the day, they can only spend, they may love that individual personally, but they still have to run their company. How does somebody really vet like, okay, I like this person. I do feel that it'll be a good relationship in the future, but how much time do they spend investing in it? Because they can't just spend days on end with that.
Well, first of all, they have to take, it's like, there's so much about running a business that's mindset, right? It's commitment to a certain way of thinking. And first they have to set their mind to the fact that this is a long-term play. They're not in it for the next 18 months, or they're not in it for the next month. They're not in it to get a sale from this person. Now, let's say we're talking about a buyer here, not a current client or referral partner. Those people can refer you and most likely do. There's other ways to go about those relationships. But in part, similarly, you have to build a relationship with the buyer. You have to build a relationship with the person that could refer you, but also could buy from you. Okay. So that means getting in touch with them. It's being in their same room. It's prioritizing the activities and the activities that are going to put you in front of them. It could be LinkedIn. It could be at an event. It could be an industry trade show. Yeah. It could be all these things. But when you're in front of them, it's not trying to sell them. It's about meeting them, getting a good personal connection, and then continuing that connection.
Correct.
So the continuing
my
the
best
connection
relationships with people are neither one of us were trying to sell.
Yeah.
It was just, a professional and a professional that cared about what they were doing.
Correct.
And over time, it developed in referrals and networks.
That's right. They know that you have something to sell them. Like, they know that there could be a fit. If they're an astute business person, they're going to know, okay, bank CEO's got banking products. He's probably going to want me to be a banking client. Yeah. And that's probably true.
Yeah.
But if you're not pushing that and trying to sell them on something, they're going to respect the fact that you actually have more value to bring them, which is going to attract them.
Correct. And the best relationships aren't going to happen right then and there.
That's right.
It's going to be over time.
It takes time. So it takes patience.
It's a snowball effect, because you could be the best at what you do, but if you just started that career, and you think you're going to get referrals right then and there, no.
Right.
Because people aren't going to refer you if they don't know that you're going to be there.
Yeah. And this is,
so it takes years. I mean, it was harder in my 20s to get referrals than it was in the 30s and 40s. When you've got 10, 15, 20 years into that same career and you're providing it, your networking, your tentacles go out so much further. Yes.
And they're so much deeper. This is why,
people know they're not going to get burned either when they refer you, because, we've all had the industries where somebody come to me and say, hey, do you have anyone that can provide? For us, it was always difficult for credit card terminals. Yeah. They come to the bank, ask for, we got a business, we need credit card terminals. That industry for many years, it was like, I was afraid to refer anybody because they would be in that business and they'd be gone. Yeah. I don't know why, but there was such turnover in the salespeople in those businesses. It was just turning there. And so I'm like, you're on your own on this one. The people that I knew that were great a year ago aren't good. And it took a while. Now we know somebody that has been in it for years and provides a great service. Yeah. But
at the core of this, I'm talking about mindset, but you have to examine yourself as a person and say, what do your relationships look like in personal relationships, your work, with your employees, with your professional network? What do those look like? And be honest with yourself. Maybe get some feedback as like, am I a good friend? Am I a good, like if you kind of get this sense that you might not be, then you're probably not good at building a network, because building a network is about building solid, genuine, authentic relationships where, it goes back to patience. Like it's not just be patient about these relationships because it takes time. Well, that's true. But what's behind that, or what's underneath that, is the empathy part of it, the caring part of it. Because if you are patient with relationships, you're probably patient with other things in your life and your business. You're not trying to sell every single person you're in front of. You have, more methodical, or you're more strategic about how you're doing. You're not in it for the sale today. You're in it for the sale that's going to give you the long-term value, over time. And those clients that come by referral are usually the ones that are sold fastest, and they stay the longest.
Absolutely.
Because they've spent time with you and they've seen, okay, this could work. And especially in banking, if someone's going to switch their banking over, it's a difficult thing to get them to do, because you're uprooting.
Asking. I mean, it is. I mean, you can't meet somebody and say, "Hey, I'm a bank. Why don't you have your account?" Are you kidding me? I'm not spending time to switch accounts.
It'd take forever.
No.
So there has to be a big enough impetus for them to want to change. And that takes time to build a relationship so they can see the value there, and them having a bad experience on their side too, to culminate into, I don't care what it takes, we're going to do this because I want to be closer to you and what you're doing and your team. And I want to be farther away from what I'm doing over here, which that's the part that takes time.
So for the first part, what would you say our overarching theme is?
Overarching theme is mindset. It's understanding that it's about relationships. It's not about quote unquote networking. I was going to say, this is why a lot of companies will hire sales people, and they're generally in certain terms, that have been in the industry for a long time, and they have solid networks and relationships that they can call on for business. You see this a lot in insurance, where they'll buy a book of business. Well, they're actually buying a book of business that's financial, purchase, and that person kind of goes along with it as the agent or rep. But there's a reason why there's a book.
Customers.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's a book, because those people are generally relationship oriented. And
those people, since you bought that book, they're going to take your first call, which is the hardest part, is to actually, I can guarantee you, I walk back in my office right now, I've got 2 sales calls that have left a message for me that I don't know. And I'm not going to return every sales call. I can't. There's not enough time in the day.
Of course.
To do that. So buying a book of business, those people are going to answer your call, so you have a better time to nurture that relationship. Yeah,
for sure. Couple other things that I had noted here I want to say in this first part, and that is, serendipity is a thing, where you never know who's going to help you, because, when I look at my buyers, I look at stakeholders that are influential to the buyer, and those you can get some gray area there sometimes, but sometimes it's clear who's the kind of champion to the sale. But if you aren't paying attention to everyone in the ecosystem, you are going to be caught off guard about where your sale can come from, or where that relationship can lead. And so, on one side of the coin, you have to understand that your buyer may not be your buyer, because your buyer may sit behind the buyer, kind of thing.
Correct.
So you have to orient yourself to be about relationships. It can't be about the dollar sign of what you're going to sell your business for.
And, so that makes me think, when you're new to it, you're starting out, you're young, you get into it. Yeah. If don't get upset if you don't get immediate results. You do not. Yeah. It takes time. And if you have that, and that's where it goes mindset. If you have that mindset, hey, great, I network, it's not coming in. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. No.
In fact, if you're going to start a business, go start building a network, building relationships, talking to mentors, talking to people that have been there in the industry, potential buyers. Talk to all those people for, I would say, realistically, like 12 months, 18 months, 2 years before you even, because you're a player in there before you even take that financial risk. The opposite side of that coin of serendipity to me is burning bridges. And I was going to say, I think that obviously burning bridges is not a good idea. I think, our emotions can get the best of us, and we can we can get angry over and frustrated over certain things, and we'll just be like, we're going to cut that person off. I mean, we've all been there, but those are the times to say, okay, this person could be the worst person that I know. And yes, maybe I need to distance myself from them. I don't want to actively engage them in a relationship, but I don't need to pour fuel on the fire, because you never know where that's going to lead.
Ultimately, you add fuel, or you are antagonistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never going to go your way.
No.
At best, you may have some little satisfaction in the
out.
beginning, but overall, you don't have the satisfaction. It doesn't work. It just,
and that's sort of
be
where
kind and
it's
distance.
a sacrificial thing too, kind of, because you have to look at the relationship as the goal, more broad than the person. And meaning your reputation goes beyond whatever they could say or whatever they could do. You can't control that person. Mm-hmm. But a quick story. So a client of mine brought on like 5 years ago, and started doing work with their team. And as I was brought in, I typically will I'll look at their team. I could look on LinkedIn and kind of across the web and see, okay, what are the type of personalities I'm dealing with? So I know when I go into the room, I'm not going to be caught off guard by, someone wanting to grill me on some specific thing. I can kind of have that in my mind and not be caught off guard. And so I found one person on this team that I was like, oh, okay, we don't necessarily see the world in the same way. So this, we might have tension here. So this particular person could be a problem. I mean, distinctively remember that. Go in, have the first, big team meeting and everything. And I'm like, okay, that went fine. I could see he was sort of reserved, sitting back in the room. And because, everybody has the opportunity to look up what I'm doing online too and make their assumptions about me before this meeting. And I'm assuming that they are. So we have that first meeting and everything goes fine, better than I thought. And then go on, subsequential meetings, start doing work together, and the years start to go on, and his voice is there, but it's sort of in the background, which I always want to know
cognizant.
About. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know, but. And then as the years go on, his voice starts to come more to the forefront, and we start working together on certain projects more directly. And so I always had this in the back of my mind that, okay, we're at odds because we have different ways that we look at the world, and that's fine, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to step on his toes or whatever. And so what's funny about the whole thing is 5 years later, I end up being the confidant to him outside of his team and the company about him not really wanting to be at his role anymore, and him telling me like he had no one to share it with. And so he shares all this with me, and I'm kind of like over lunch one day, I'm just like,
it was hard. He couldn't do it with his coworkers.
Whoa. I didn't even I had no idea he had respect enough for me or trust in me to like share all this stuff. And so it became where we actually had a great relationship. Right. Mm-hmm. And now to the point where he confided in me that he was going to preemptively leave his work and go work somewhere else, and wanted to get my recommendation and my thoughts on it. So we have like this closer relationship, but I didn't even think that we had a relationship. And so to the point of burning bridges, like I could have easily gone on that first meeting and just been like, okay, you're a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to deal with your problem. But now here we are in the back end of course, 5 years, it takes time. And he is potentially going to be a good referral source for me in, the industry that I'm working in. So, you just never know which way relationships are going to go. But to the point of building relationships, it's about putting yourself second and saying, I'm really going to go out there and add value. And I also have products and services that I think add value that are going to come along with me. And so it's, you going out to serve people genuinely. And I think one good thing is if you're not that person, you need to align people with you that are like relationship oriented. Yeah. So bring people on your team that are more relationship oriented.
That makes me remind, like, of course, run a bank, and all banks are different. We all have different risk appetite, and some banks, all they do is bank restaurants. Other banks,
that's right,
they don't know restaurants. Every industry has their own thing. So, over the years, I've had so many people come up for different ideas, and it just wasn't a risk appetite. But the way you deliver that message and say, okay, well, I do believe you have something. It's not best suited for us, but let me refer you to a network of other bankers that I know,
Yeah.
This is more suited and they can help you. They've got a specialty in your line of business. And, that has helped and fostered, okay, I couldn't personally do that loan at that time. Another network of bankers could. And, it wasn't forgotten. And years later, I've received phone calls. Hey, so-and-so, And
you never know how that's going to come back. Sometimes, you have like the sacrificial point. You have to put it out there like, this is never going to come back. I'm just being a good human. And it might not come back. But a lot of times you see it come back in the weirdest way. Someone will walk in with a 3x account and say, oh yeah, this person told me I should definitely talk to you, and say all these good things. So there's your return, right? Yeah. And so that's why I think if anybody watching this has any, concern about relationship building, then they need to kind of rethink the business that they're in, because all businesses are based on relationships. It's you with your board.
Yeah.
It's you with your employees. It's your employees with you. It's your buyers. It's your strategic partners, vendors. It's all relationships.
Correct. And if you don't like relationships, you shouldn't be running a company or be in charge of a division or any of that. Then you just need to be in a task oriented and maybe you need to be in a different field.
Yes. Maybe building rockets or something, but still,
there's
a lot of relationships.
Drive from point A to point B and deliver this, and that's it.